Unspoken Issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Unspoken Issues podcast. I'm Jesse Starcher, and here with me, of course, is Dean Compton. How's things hanging, Dean?
Man, I'll tell you what, things are going really well because we're going to talk about the Punisher today. And if there's anything that you get to know about me, after, let's say, 1.6 seconds, that I fucking love the Punisher.
Have we been on a podcast together and talked about the Punisher?
I'm not sure that we have, so you're in for quite a treat.
Oh, buddy, I know that we share a few things in common, and one of those is a love for the white-gloved, skull-chested Frank Castle. I am a big fan of the Punisher as well. Yes, sir. Can't forget them white boots. Gun-toting. I was like, this guy loves the Punisher. I love the Punisher. We're friends. That's how it's going to be.
It's that simple. I wish it was that simple when it comes to Punisher. Sadly, there's a lot of people who are really into the Punisher that I do not want to be friends with.
Oh, my goodness.
I love the Punisher, and you love the Punisher in the same way. He's my favorite character of all time in any medium of anything, like TV, movies. I don't care what, and there are a lot of great characters out there like Count Chocula and RoboCop, but the Punisher is my favorite.
We had this poll up a long time ago, and it was one of those ones that kind of went by the wayside. So we had a contest between these two issues, which I'm going to edit in here right now. So future Jesse Starcher coming at you here. Finally found the results of this poll. This was put up January 12th, 2020. The contestants were two what-if issues. What if number 49, what if the Silver Surfer possessed the Infinity Gauntlet, versus what if the Punisher had killed Spider-Man. And by golly, what if number 58, what if the Punisher had killed Spider-Man, came out on top? So, Dean Compton, I mean, look, you said you love the Punisher. I'm going to give you your free reign here to kind of discuss why you like this character so much.
Well, I think when I was a kid, and the first time I remember seeing the Punisher, I was in 4th grade, and I was at this friend of mine's house, staying overnight, playing Nintendo, the life, and watching USA Up All Night, whatever. If we'd had two TVs, my God, we'd have died. But like, I remember he had a bunch of comic books, and he had the Punisher, and I was like, what's that? He's like, oh, that's the Punisher. And I was like, what's his deal? It's like, oh, he kills people. It's an Australian comic book. And I was like, all right.
Australian?
I listen, I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
I think this kid's probably just fucking me,
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I think. And then like the movie comes out, like the Dolph Lundgren, like 1989, 1990 movie. And I read it, I was like, oh, I remember this guy. This guy's my favorite. And from there, it started to creep in. I'd see the comics on the newsstands, on the racks at Walmart or Kroger. I had a friend who, really nice guy who was a DJ in our town who would talk to me about comics because he collected them. And I talked to him about the Punisher. He informed me, no, the Punisher was not an Australian character, but like instead was, just straight up part of the Marvel universe. And I got into him. And when I was a kid, I liked the Punisher because partly because, you grew up, with Rambo, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Chuck Norris, the 80s, I was born in 79. So for most of the 80s, a lot of it was like, big guns and, blow shit up, the Punisher did that. But I thought that as a kid, I thought that this was the right way to do things. Like, why doesn't Spider-Man just kill Dr. Octopus? Solve the problem.
Sure.
Because obviously that's what you do. You just kill anybody. That's how you take care of it. As I got older, I read more Punisher, a lot more Punisher. I really enjoyed the sympathy you have for the character, the brief glimpses of humanity that come through. I enjoy how the Punisher has almost transcended humanity. I talk about him like, he's like the Hulk. In the Marvel universe, there are several forces of nature, and two of them are like Hulk and the Punisher, and I really like that aspect of him. I like how good he is at planning things. I like how good he is at overcoming odds where, he probably shouldn't be able to hang with the superheroes and villains that he does, but he finds a way to do it. And I enjoy his black and white perspective. For the Punisher, there's right, there's wrong, and there's punishment. Mm-hmm. And I wish my life was like that sometime. Not that I want my family to get killed in a mob crossfire. And, I declare a one-man war on crime. But life's complicated for most of us. But for Frank Castle, it's not. Yeah. And tragic events led him to this, and he continues to do murderous, tragic things. But there's something very, very inspiring about that level of finality with him. Like, this is just it. There's right, wrong, and punishment. Stephen Grant, who wrote the first Punisher miniseries, and I talked to him about the Punisher, he said one of the things was he He's like Heidegger's philosophy personified. I think it was Heidegger. Everything is pointless. Like, you're not going to live long enough to really do anything. Everything that you do is sort of meaningless. You can't really affect things for the most part. So what you should do is pick one thing and just focus on that. And if you just focus on that one thing, you might have a very, very, very small chance of impacting something. Well, the Punisher is that embodied because all he does is kill criminals.
That's right.
And there's something, and again, there's something about that, like, you know, in regard to like the existentialism of life and everything. Like, maybe everything is pointless, and maybe the Punisher has it right. Again, not killing people, but maybe the whole thing should just be this tenacious and black and white tunnel vision and focus on that. That's not how it's going to be for me, so I admire that in a character. What about you, man? Why do you like the Punisher? It's probably not nearly as long-winded. I take a drink for that. I'm old.
So I guess the first time, let me, I guess, talk about the first time that I saw that I'd seen the Punisher, and I'm pretty certain that it had to have been the first issue of the ongoing series from, what was that, 88? I can't remember off the top.
87, I believe.
87? Okay. So, you know, this is the issue with where he's on the outside of the apartment building with the bazooka, and he's got it aimed towards the inside. So this is that's the first issue of the ongoing. Am I correct?
Fuck yeah, oh yeah, fuck those guys. He's standing on the fire escape and shooting them with a bazooka because the Punisher's like, fuck you and fuck me. I just don't care. They don't care.
He don't. He does not. And so I think this may be the actual first ever #1 issue that I had bought in my comic collecting career. So I this was on the shelf. This was something that I was like, okay, this looks cool. Now. I am getting this issue. Had no idea about who the Punisher was. And if I remember correctly, it's not like, you know, you're steeped into the Marvel universe as soon as you jump into the first issue of the Punisher. It's just him and his war on crime.
Right.
I like what you said about the simplicity of the character and how it's just right, wrong, and punishment. That spoke to me. I wasn't a guy who watched Death Wish, and I know that I think is an inspiration for what went into Frank Castle and the Punisher. So I didn't have that behind me. And that didn't feed into my joy of what I had seen come across the page. But I did know that, you know, drugs were bad. Drug dealers were bad. You know, this was probably ingrained into me. But the
inner city's a war zone.
you wanted to see these people that cause suffering pay, and this was the guy that was going to do it. This wasn't anything else that I had seen on shelves for comics at the time. So I really was like, okay, I'm getting that first issue. And I tried my best to get the issues subsequently after that. It was with me from the beginning of that ongoing series, and I really like that character. Everything I've read since then, if I can get my hands on something that was Punisher related, or the Punisher showed up in an issue of something, I wanted to see how it does. I'll never forget, like, the frenzy of Punisher and the Wolverine going up against each other in the pages. That was War Journal, I think.
Yeah, Punisher War Journal 6 and 7, I believe.
Oh my gosh,
Jim Lee,
dude! I'll never forget. Like, I couldn't wait. I couldn't believe it was going to happen, and I wanted to see how the hell Punisher was going to live. You know, it was amazing.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with Punisher, though, like you mentioned, like he guessed in something, and that's another reason to really like him. He works everywhere, as long as you don't change him. You can put the Punisher in a funny story, you can put him in a serious story, you can put him in, a high emotion, high action. It doesn't matter. As long as he doesn't change, it will work. Like, it's not like the Punisher never says anything funny. It's not like the Punisher never makes a great one-liner or anything. But, like, mostly things just have to happen around him. And, like, as long as he stays the same, he's great. And, like, in some ways, and I think it was Ann Nocenti who said this to me, the Punisher is so two-dimensional, it really becomes three-dimensional. Because he can fit in so many places. And also, let's not overlook this. He's fucking cool, man. He's got 1 million guns. He's got a big battle band. He shoots things with missiles. He smarts off the superheroes, not just the bad guys, but the superheroes. Like, he's like, get out of here, Hornhead, and all this bullshit. I mean, he thinks Spider-Man's annoying, and you like Spider-Man, but you also think it's cool that like Spider-Man is like a cool guy that you're friends with. You're like, I'll never be that cool. So sometimes it's fun when somebody, like, I don't give a shit about you, this cool friend. You're like, yeah, bring them down a peg. They are
That's
cool.
right.
But like,
let's even
this playing field a little.
And the other thing is like, what powers does he have? Zero.
Well, I think here's the real deal. If you ask me what superpower the Punisher has, it's the super ability to never blow anybody away who doesn't deserve it.
Okay. All right.
That's it.
I'll allow it. That sounds great. Sounds great. Well, so we're hopping into this What If number 58. It hits shelves December 21st, 1993. I don't know how this escaped my view at that time, because I was I liked the What Ifs, the second volume of What If. I was collecting that. I remember buying that first issue off the shelves too. I didn't know what I was.
The Avengers lost the Evolutionary War.
Exactly, and I can remember the ending too. Like all this stuff starts raining down. All this stuff starts raining down, and like their heads all of a sudden become really enlarged. Anyway, that's just off the top of my head, and legitimately, that was fucking
Punisher's
20
like,
years
I used
ago.
to fight crime, but who cares now?
Yeah. So I got that first issue of What If. We're looking at 58 issues into the series, 1993. This cover, oh my gosh, this cover! I don't understand how it didn't leap out and smack me in the face. If I went into a store and this was on the shelves, I'm punching myself right now for not buying it. Can you kind of give us an idea of what originally happens in the 616 when the Punisher tried to kill Spider-Man, and what was it in that Amazing Spider-Man issue?
Yeah, so it's Amazing Spider-Man 129, and yeah, like you said, the cover of this What If is an homage cover to that one with the crosshairs. If you really look at that 129, it's one of the greatest covers for a first appearance of all time. Like the Punisher's over like instantly. Like you see it, he looks, he's different, he's deadly, he's the Punisher, and the crosshairs are on Spider-Man, and like, obviously even in 1974, 75, nobody thought that Spider-Man was actually going to die. But you look at that cover, you're like, man, this guy might just be able to do it. In that issue, he works with the Jackal to take down Spider-Man, who's been smeared by the Daily Bugle, and who they think he's being accused of murdering the Green Goblin. And the Green Goblin did die fighting Spider-Man, but he didn't murder him. It's not really how it went down. And so the Jackal's trying to, become a crime boss. He's using Frank Castle to do it. The Punisher goes after Spider-Man. They have a fight. Spider-Man, more or less gets the better of Punisher, but he gets away. I think he goes to see the Jackal again. Then he goes to see the mechanic, who has been providing him with weapons. And you see him in this issue of What If. He's like, and the mechanic's dead. And then Spider-Man shows up because Spider-Man's been trying to chase him down because Spider-Man found a gun at the scene that the Punisher, quote unquote, left. But it had like a fucking like tag on it where it was made.
Yeah.
And so he traces it back to the mechanic, and then they fight, and Spider-Man gets the better of this fight, and he's like, hey, I didn't kill this guy. He's like, look, he's got like claw marks in his back. I didn't do that. He's like, and then this Punisher's like, how'd you find me? He goes, well, you left this gun was there. This tag is on it. And he's like, yeah, I didn't put that there. He goes, the Jackal must have. He goes, and Spider-Man's even like, yeah, it didn't seem like you would just leave the name of the gun store you bought this gun at, on the gun. Seemed like more of a pro than that. He mentions, Punisher mentions he is fighting a war. He's like, what war are you fighting? And he's like, you don't worry about it. It's never going to end. And he walks away. And one of my favorite lines in regard to the Punisher is uttered at this point, where Spider-Man says, something tells me that guy's got problems that make mine look like a birthday party.
Yeah, buddy.
That's pretty much what happens. That's the end of Punisher's first appearance. He'd appear again a few issues later. And Punisher holds its own nicely. It's Spider-Man's book, though. So Spider-Man's he's gonna go over,
That's right. Ain't
no WCW guy beating no WWF guy during the invasion.
That's the truth. So the title of this What If issue is, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, is The Day I Killed Spider-Man. Now this is written by Chuck Dixon. Do you have any pearls of wisdom on Chuck Dixon?
He was a fantastic Punisher writer. Wrote a very prolific writer at the time. Batman, Nightwing, Robin. Very good action writer. Did some Moon Knight. He wrote my favorite Punisher story of all time, the first 7 issues of Punisher Warzone. Really good action writer. That's, he wrote so many books in the 90s, and you knew you were going to get a nice hard-hitting action story from Chuck Dixon. Sometimes not always great, but always solid. Always solid. And then, and this one's actually, it's really good. It's beyond solid.
Yeah, it's actually one of the better What If issues. You never, as for the What If series itself, do you have any I guess commentary in regards to what you got in the what if?
I loved What If. Obviously, one reason is, the stakes are higher. Anything could happen. I mean, like whatever it was, what if the Fantastic Four died? Like I said a minute ago, the Punisher's never going to kill Spider-Man in Spider-Man's book. And even if he does, Spider-Man will get better. But in the what ifs, the stakes were high. They played for keeps. And like, I always liked that about him. One of my first comic book store memories actually was going in. I didn't have enough money for it. It was probably about a year before this came out. It was like, what if the Avengers fought Galactus instead of the Fantastic Four? So on this Earth, there's no Fantastic Four. And so things go a little differently in a lot of different, in a lot of different ways. And it was double sized and I wanted it so bad because I had the cards and I knew the story of Galactus and the Fantastic Four, and I wanted to see what happened. Like I acted like this was a big fucking event. Like it was like, oh my god, if I don't find this out, people will talk. I don't think I don't know anything. And I remember like cleaning up my room as perfectly as I could. So mom would give me like this $1.75 or like $2.25 or whatever it was. But man, I loved that comic and I was always a big fan. What If can be a little hard to read in a binge because most of them wind up sad and negative. Yep. Like normally, like it's almost never like, what if the X-Men were really happy? I mean, like it's never one of like, what if Spider-Man and Uncle Ben were just like cool bros? Like very rarely. But some are like, positive endings, but most of them are negative, and most of them are worth reading though, at least the first 100 issues or so.
Yeah.
Of volume 2.
What if the alien costume possessed Spider-Man, and the next thing you know, oh shit, halfway through the issue, it's on the Hulk. Now we've got trouble. It's cool because they could take it any direction they wanted, and it felt like the writers had free reign. Chuck Dixon getting a shot here at writing a Punisher story where the Punisher killed Spider-Man. Get ready, folks. It's going to be a fun one. So, penciled by Gordon Purcell, inked by Andrew Pepoy. Here comes that synopsis, but first let me tell you about Amazon Music. You may not be able to find Frank Castle's heavy gunmetal album, Lead Poisoning, but you will be able to find Jackal's 1992 self-titled album, which features Dirty Little Mind, Down on Me, and of course, The Lumberjack. If you head to getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network, you can get a free 30-day trial where you can check out over 70 million songs. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network for that free 30-day trial. We open with a flashback to the moment that Frank Castle, the Punisher, was convinced by the Jackal that Spider-Man was one of the worst villains around. And in order to wipe that evil out of the world, Frank had to kill Spider-Man. But before he could do that, the Punisher had to learn about his target. The other motivation the Jackal promised was near limitless funding for Frank's war on crime. Studying his foe, Frank comes to the realization that the path he is going down is one that has no return. So he sets fire to his family's home. That's his former family. Just like we learned there in the Punisher's origin, his family was killed by the mob. So at his own home, he sets fire to everything and proceeds to focus on the endless war ahead as the Punisher. Frank Castle is dead as far as he's concerned. During his first attack on Spider-Man, the Punisher begins to see that he has some kind of sixth sense that warns him of danger. So the Spider-Man, what could that be? Oh yes, the spider sense. Barely escaping Spider-Man's pursuit, Frank determines there must be a way to use this new knowledge to his advantage. As the Jackal becomes less and less patient, the Punisher sets up a trap with a bomb to make it look as if Doc Ock was in a building. Pete's spider sense goes off, but it is too late as Frank detonates the explosive, killing Spider-Man. As the media reveals Peter Parker was Spider-Man, Frank sees that he had been led astray by the Jackal and intends on making him pay. However, the Jackal was one step ahead, leaving evidence and calling the police just as Frank reached his destination. Now the world and its heroes see Castle as a murderer that needs to be brought to justice. Trying to lie low, the villainous Vulture finds Frank and invites him to share a drink with other Spider-Man villains to celebrate what he had accomplished killing Spider-Man. Castle has not lost his sense of justice, however, and opens fire, killing all of them. Later, Frank hears an interview with Peter's colleagues and friends and recognizes a voice. Turning to the TV, he sees Professor Miles Warren, but he knows the voice belongs to the Jackal. Tracking Warren down, Frank assures him that he is going going to kill him, but only once the cops arrive. We are led to believe that even though the police tell Castle they will shoot him if he kills Professor Warren, Castle stays true to his word. I've got my stuff, I guess, running in order when it comes to talking points, and I'll kind of start here. There's a bit of a cameo that kind of happens. It's just like maybe 2 panels, but there's somebody that looks like Gwen Stacy that shows up behind the Punisher at one point prior to him, turning on the Jackal.
Right.
So now I'm not well versed in 70s Spider-Man, but from what I understand, this is a clone of Gwen Stacy. Am I correct there? Do you know?
That's correct. Gwen Stacy would have died by this time. Gwen Stacy died, I think, in Spider-Man 1, Amazing Spider-Man 120, maybe 119, but Punisher appeared in 129, and the timeline of this universe is the same until this moment.
Okay.
They actually mention it when they're like not eulogizing, but when like the media is talking about Peter after his death, and they're like, oh, he just lost Gwen Stacy and stuff too. And then like Miles Warren mentions it later to the Punisher. He's like, yeah, I didn't realize how they were all tied together until like, Gwen's dead, now Peter's dead, Spider-Man and Gwen, Peter and Gwen. I didn't get it, but now it all makes sense. Of course, it's the last mystery he'd solve.
It's true. I did a little bit of research. Joyce Delaney is the name of the clone, according to what I see here. Obviously, I think if I remember correctly, the Jackal created her just to kind of like mess around with, I don't know if it was messing with Spider-Man or mess with the head of Spider-Man or Peter Parker. I can't remember which is which. He obviously didn't know Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So I think he was trying to mess with Spider-Man at the time, I assume.
I think he did know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man though.
Okay.
Later, like I think when he's being the Jackal at first, he doesn't know, but I think later he does because of like a DNA test or something that he takes on him and Gwen Stacy because he cloned Spider-Man as well later. So I think he does know at some point. I don't think he knows at this point.
Yeah.
But at some point he will know that stuff. And I think later on they like retcon it to where like he made the Gwen Stacy clone and like married her and they had kids or some shit. Like just some creepy stuff that like didn't really have to be done. We already hated the Jackal, bro. Not just because he's evil, but also because he's kind of stupid. Like he looks kind of stupid. And the Punisher mentions, he's like, why does a science professor want to be a fucking crime boss? Yeah, why does he? I don't remember. I mean, maybe there's I think there's an explanation where like he got exposed to his own experiment or some shit. I can't remember. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Jackal. So, I
I understand.
I mean, like the only important thing about the Jackal is that, him and the Punisher.
The other thing that I had here was it was interesting to think of Frank running for his life from like all the heroes of the Marvel universe.
Well, I mean, it tracks, and it was really cool. They put like Hellcat in there.
Yeah.
Luke Cage in his Power Man outfit. Everything is true to the times, around 70, 74, 75. This is what these guys were up to. These are prominent faces in the Marvel universe. These were Spider-Man's pals. It was fun to see him getting away in like different ways. Like he's like in a car and the thing's got it held up and he's like pointing a gun shooting the thing. Really cool, like Hawkeye's there, Human Torch, who has a great relationship with Peter Parker. They would all be upset. It's funny to see because it parallels the quote unquote real Marvel universe, the old 616, because it he spawned a lot of those heroes in the same one. In fact, recently when he had the War Machine armor, him and Thing went at it, and like he jumped on Thing and just like unloaded those like wrist barrels in Thing's face, and Thing's like, he's a mad dog, get him off me. Not that he hurt the Thing, but he certainly made him feel unnerved. I mean, I think it was appropriate. It's what would have happened in that world. Everybody loved Spider-Man. Even the people who hated Spider-Man loved him after he passed away in this world. Like J. Jonah Jameson was like, I was wrong. He was a hero. He was one of us. I mean, like, so everybody was fucking mad at the Punisher at this point, and including the Punisher, because he should have been duped. He should have fallen for this, and he knows he shouldn't have fallen for this. And that's the biggest difference between mainstream Punisher and this one. Although later they did that stupid Secret Empire stuff, but I think we've all just agreed to be like Secret Empire didn't happen, right?
Yeah,
like, we've all just agreed it didn't happen.
But
so no, I really like this page, and it would be a contender for like my favorite panel or page in the book. It's really fantastic.
Frank being on the run It's just not what I'm used to seeing. Usually you're used to seeing the Punisher is going to be one of the guys that may have been the one that picked the fight in the first place, or at least he's got a strategy on how he's going to beat whoever he's going up against. And, this page is just him like, okay, I've got to get out of here. I've got to stop running into these people that want to kill me.
He's like, I'm out of my weight class.
Yeah, out of my weight class. He knows that if he sticks around and tries to punch this out with any of these guys, he's not going to end up alive, or at least out of jail at the very least.
Well, I think he's really good, and Captain America was there too. I think Punisher is you got to remember, this is Punisher year one, and I think his time is going on much like Batman year one. Batman's not very good at being Batman in Batman year one. Punisher's not great at this yet either. I think as time goes on, we accept that the Punisher has what it takes to hold his own with a variety of superheroes and villains who have a lot more powers than he does. He constantly fights like Daredevil, Wolverine, and Spider-Man, and Moon Knight, and even Captain America, and has gone toe to toe with some heavier hitters like Wolverine. He's done his he's gone toe to toe with the Sentry and guys like that. And I think it's because he is such a great planner. Now he has a lot more information on them.
Yeah.
Now as time has gone on, he knows his strategies better. And that kind of thing. And I think this is a guy who is so cold and calculated. Whatever it takes to win, he'll do. One of my favorite things about a Punisher Daredevil or a Punisher Spider-Man fight is usually less so with Spider-Man because of the super strength, but Daredevil will kick him 5 times, and Punisher will be like, yeah, that's it, come in here, kick me. If I got to kick you 5 times, hit you once, that's what I'll do. And then the Punisher hits him 1 time, and you got Daredevil being like, how do you hit me so hard? You know what I mean? So that's the thing that I think Punisher makes up for when he goes out of his weight class, willing to take those hits to make some hits. He's also an incredible strategist and studies his opponents. This Punisher would not have had those opportunities. He's been the Punisher for half an hour.
Yeah, that's true. Very good point. Chuck could have done this a whole different. I know he wouldn't have, but he could have done this issue completely different. The Punisher could have been so distraught over the fact that he killed Peter Parker that he goes into a deep depression and does not continue to fight his fight towards justice. That's not the Punisher, and I'm glad that that's not what we get here, especially when the Vulture brings him in to meet up with all the other villains that have a big smile on their face.
I met some very interesting people before blowing them away.
There is, okay, so obviously I recognize I'd say just about every one of them, except for one, which I think is the Beetle. The purple.
It's the Beetle.
Okay.
Yeah, with the purple helmet.
And the fingers.
Yeah, the suction cup fingers.
But yeah, these are all villains of that era for
they're Spider-Man. Rogues Gallery, for the most part. I think the Beetle started out he may have started out as a Spider-Man villain who then fought. I think that is it. Started out as a Spider-Man villain who then fought Iron Man and the Human Torch. But yeah, it's basically the who's who of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. This is pre-Venom, pre-Carnage. So he blows them all the fuck away. He's not your friend. He's not their friend.
I will tell you, I'm just going to go ahead and put my panel out there right now. And that is when Vulture realizes he's made a mistake. And Castle has the gun up to the back of his head, and the Vulture's like, oh, what did I do?
Right.
I love that look on his face. But that is my highlights. Now, except for the very end. The end of this story is probably... What if stories can go really flat sometimes?
Yeah, everybody's dead.
Yeah, just you don't have anything to look forward to. The story could have been subpar. The way that
the one where it's what if the heroes lost Atlantis attacks? What a fucking downer.
Yeah,
it is just nothing but a downer.
Yeah,
and like you said, the last 4 pages, 5 pages, the set wins 10 pages in. So you got 11 pages of just nothing. Silver Surfer shows up, and it's just a downer from there on. But this one I feel had a great ending, even if it's not the happiest ending. To be honest, the sad thing happens in the middle.
So this ending, I did my best to kind of leave it kind of vague when we did the synopsis, but this is Frank Castle knows he's going to die, and he called the cops.
Yeah.
Castle was the one that called the cops. And
he's done.
Give me your interpretation as to what happened and how this ending, what happened with this ending.
Well, mean, he tells the Jackal, he tells the Jackal he knows everything, and he's like, aren't you going to, and Jackal's like, aren't you going to kill me? And Punisher's like, not till the cops get here. Because the Punisher's done. I think this Punisher didn't have what it takes to continually wage that one-man war on crime. He didn't have what it took, in a lot of ways. He fucked up like the very first thing. And I don't think the Punisher could handle it. So, I think he decided to commit suicide by a cop, but not before he took out the guy who caused his downfall. So that's exactly what happens. He's like, they show up, they're like, Punisher, if you shoot him, we drop you. And he's just like, well, I've only got one thing to say then, Jackal. See you on the other side.
Yeah, man, and
then we presume he blows him away and the cops shoot him.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of this book is the fact that we don't see that. They just they leave it with the final page, full page of Castle's face pointing a gun at the Jackal. And that's it while he's got all these other guns pointed at him. And it's just like, he's going to do it. There's no doubt in your mind he's going to do it.
Whatever you think happened from that panel on, the only thing that is that the Jackal's dead.
Yes,
sir. You may decide that the guys decided to bring in Castle instead, because they could. Yeah. He's not going to shoot them, and there's like 7 of them or whatever. So they may decide they don't have to because he's not going to hurt them. They may shoot him. I assume they just shoot him, But one thing's for sure, the Jackal is dead.
Yeah, he's dead. There's no doubt about it. This was the first time that I'd read this issue. I'd seen it. I think I own it. It's one of those things where I owned it. And if I remember correctly, I think it actually fetches, it's not horribly expensive, but it fetches the price.
It's a $20 comic.
Yeah. And it's cool to see some of those what ifs get those nods to hey, this is the Punisher and you want to check this comic out. And it's a good story. And I think that probably adds to the value of what we're seeing too. But it's probably one of the better what ifs that I've read. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of some of the real top what ifs that I've enjoyed. The only other one that I can think of off the top of my head that I really enjoy involves the Punisher as well, and that's what if Wolverine was Lord of the Vampires, where
Vigilante Supreme.
Yeah, that's the only other what if that I can think of off the top of my head, and they use Punisher in that one as well to I think a very good to tell a pretty good story. But anyway,
there's some other good what ifs. A lot of them do involve the Punisher though, or some of them do. I also like what if the Punisher became Captain America? Which is around this. What if Punisher became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Those were published for 6 or 7 months of this one. I actually bought this one new. I have read this what if probably 60 or 70 times. And also when I was in Upward Bound during my bridge summer, which is like the summer between your senior year and your first year of college, my girlfriend had to do a project on something pop culture related, and so she did the Punisher, and we did this thing where she pretended to be Maria Castle and I was Frank Castle, and they needed me. I gave them sources, and one of the things that they did was they used what if issues as sources, and this was one of them they used. They're in certain realities, Frank Castle kills Spider-Man. In certain realities, he killed all these villains, etc. So, all the villains in Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. So that's a funny thing to think about now. But I gave this here's a good source for you. This what if number 58, no big deal. Volume 2.
I did something for school, Punisher related as well. I think I've told you before, but I think it was 8. It had to be, I want to say 8th or 9th grade. It may have been 9th grade, but not Iowa tests. But it's something similar where they do some kind of state testing. They have you sit down. You do.
Sure.
You need to write 2 pages on a hero of yours. I fucking chose Frank Castle to Punisher.
Good job.
I'd love to see what I wrote back then.
Right.
Oh man, I wish I still
can
had
top that as far as embarrassing.
Oh no!
So when I was in 6th grade, I decided it would be really cool if I started signing all of my stuff Punisher Compton.
Oh.
Punisher Compton is a bad idea. Well, we had this period called exploratory where you rotated every 9 weeks, and one of them was baseball card collecting, and one of them was board games. Well, this one was video production, and they put my name out. At the beginning of school, they put your name on the door you're supposed to go to. Well, every 9 weeks you get your name on this door, and this teacher, for whatever reason, I guess because she thought that I thought it was cool, or maybe that's what people call me, she wrote Punisher something up there on this. So now everybody's this is 6th grade. It's not a good look. And I would also talk to people I was the Punisher for some reason. Bro, you would go to school, these people, since you were in 2nd grade, they know you're not the Punisher. I'd be yeah, you see this comic book? It's really tough for me to do this kind of lean and stuff. Bro, you're not the Punisher. So I can be more embarrassing than you.
You win, sir.
Right. How you gonna stop
There's no way.
Just on the door. And then, of course, people are like, punish me, Dean, punish me. It's terrible. It's terrible. But just speaking of the strength of Frank Castle, still my favorite character. So there you go.
He could do no wrong. I mean, that's great.
Right. The cross I had to bear so that I could see the skull.
You and I have got to talk more Punisher at some point, so I'm sure someday we are going to be at least looking at something else from the 90s that has the Punisher involved.
We'll definitely talk Punisher again soon because I would do so for fun or profit.
Okay, I understand that. What we'll do is we'll close up shop. I'll go ahead and do some plugs here. For myself, you can check me out as Tiznarkey on the Twitter if you wish. Make sure to go over to the Unspoken Issues podcast Facebook page. Become a member, join, do whatever you want to do there. We do polls. We set one issue of comics from the 90s against another issue of comics from the 90s, and we usually try to keep to a theme. Sometimes we don't, but I can tell you right now, Dean Compton's got a lot of ideas lined up. We also have some ideas from our members that have submitted. We just covered one in our recent episode where we talked Icon. That was a user submitted poll. So it gives people, number one, the opportunity to interact with us. Plus, they could tell us what kind of content they want to hear. There's an option there. You can vote. And of course, shout out to the W2M Network. That's where we kind of hang our hat for the podcast. They're hosting us right now. And of course, the Radulich Broadcasting Network as well, as we're affiliated with them. I think that's it. Dean Compton, what do you got to say?
Hey, check us out. The greatest 90s comics website, theunspoken.decade.com.
Did someone say Unspoken Decade? The place where you need to go to check out some great articles about comics in the 90s? This would be a good time to plug a sponsor of the W2M network, and that is Grammarly. For you, the listeners of Unspoken Issues, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free.
Check out our Facebook community page. It's about 5,000 members strong. Usually me and Simby Fan are posting somewhere between 4 and 8, maybe sometimes 10, covers and interiors a day. Just, having fun over there looking at 90s comics. Follow us over on Twitter at Unspoken Decade. I've tried to be more active over there lately. So, some more covers to look at. And, that's about it. Hopefully you come over there, say hi, go to the Unspoken Issues podcast page, and vote on the next one. I do have a lot of ideas, and most of them are themed up, because that's what I like to do. All right. Well, for Jesse Starcher, this has been another episode of the Unspoken Issues. I'm Dean Compton. Tune in next time. Check out everything we plug, because if you don't, you're a bad person. Thank you.